Hello, televiewers. Yeah, good evening and welcome to this other edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are sorry for the slight late start. This day we are going to be looking at the opposition in Cameroon, whether they inspire hope for better days ahead. As far as the Cameroonian public is concerned, we also are going to be looking at Anglophone elite. Is there a chance, is there an opportunity for them to redeem themselves from the fallen glory? We know how they were respected across the nation. We know how they were respected across these regions and divisions, but today many persons are seeing them as part of their problems. So can they redeem themselves? We are going to be discussing this with panelists who are seated already. We are going to start with you, Mr. Mofor Njock, who is a member of the civil society. We're glad to have you with us this evening.
Thank you. Good evening to your viewers, and we hope we are going to have a good program. And sorry that I'm just bumping to the studio, but I'm enjoying the life in Douala because we used to think that the highway from my 17 to Bomo Square has been transformed to one of the lives we live regularly in Douala, so people are finding it strange whether it is an issue of poor driving or an issue of too many cars.
No, I think that it is a net consequence of the ongoing crisis in the southwest region, where almost everybody has left. Bangem, Kumba, all this, everybody's in Boya now.
But paradoxically, Fako division, save for probably Moyoka. If you go down to Limbe,
it's calm.
And you might, well, going down to Tiko, I'm not sure also there is that issue of a traffic congestion. Leo, the issue in Boya, honestly speaking, is the challenge of poor anticipation. Because when you even imagine that we have what is supposed to be controlling traffic, the street light, and somewhere along the line they are not functioning. You start asking, how did they first of all come about to design those street lights? And you already discovered that we don't anticipate, because governance is about anticipation. Okay,
even when they were functional, they were 40 because they will be there for
anticipation.
Yes. We are also in the company of G. Lucas, all the way from Boya, also like Mr. George Mofor. We are glad to have you with us for the first time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Leo. It's a pleasure to be here. My Media Prime is actually a great medium through which so many people in Boya are following. Even in most of the areas, I always receive people who would say, most of the programs I'm inspired. I have some panelists on the panel, and so they really speak, so they inspired me. I think it's a media which is widely being followed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We are also in the company of Christian Njock. He is the big man of the party for the Littoral region. We are talking about PCRN. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening to all your viewers. I'm very happy to be here today. I would like to greet my colleagues of Ndiang division who have been installed la coordination départementale. PCRN,
okay.
Donc je salue tous mes camarades de ce côté et même ceux du FACO, à Limbe, où j'étais avant-hier.
Okay. We are also with Tamai Jarvis. He's sitting in for Andrin Atem E Ako, who is caught in traffic. He's going to be joining us very shortly. Good evening.
Good evening, Yo. Good evening to the millions viewers watching us. Good evening, Yaoundé. Good evening, Bamenda. Good evening to Moya, and of course, good evening to the Bishop of Boya, His Lordship Michael Bibi, and the President of Cardiff University Institute of Boya, Professor Victor Josgo.
Okay, we are also in the company of Paddy Asang, who will be coming in from from Germany. Christian, why are you laughing when I'm introducing? Paddy Asang, Christian Njock is sending greetings. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Do you get me now, please? Good evening and welcome.
Yes, you're welcome, Mr. Leo.
How are you?
Well, you see, we are still very, very confined, and the COVID-19, the second wave of COVID-19 is sweeping here. And you can understand in what mood I am today. I am all green because we believe in the green solution to COVID-19.
We'll start the discussions with you out there. Do you think Cameroon's opposition still inspires hope in Cameroonians today?
Mr. Leo, the opposition is the opposition. When you have a government that has failed for almost 40 years, the last hope is the opposition. But then, how do you get the opposition to work with the people? You have to come out with strategies that don't play into the hands of the government. And each time, the opposition came out with strategies that would enable the people to come out, because sovereignty still lies in the hands of the people. They get infiltrated by pro-French and pro-regime proxies who masquerade themselves and tend to be the opposition. So the solution is only in the hands of the opposition. Majority of Cameroonians are in the opposition, and most of them are silent because they have not found a credible strategy or a credible what we call modus operandi that will kick out Mr. Biya's regime. So we have to deal with the opposition and deal with a credible opposition. That's what I think. And in the course of our discussion, I'm going to develop that with you. I would never lose hope in the opposition, because I am part of that opposition. And if we fail collectively. And if we win collectively. So we have to put out, we have to clean our sphere, as we call ourselves opposition. You want to understand that the opposition is not a party, but it is everybody who thinks that Mr. Biya's government and Mr. Hijo and Biya's government continuous has failed our people, and we need an alternative. So the alternative is the opposition, but the opposition is not a continuation of the same system. And we those very critical persons in the opposition, we already know that there are some people who are working, parading themselves as opposition, whereas they are actually trying to perpetrate the same system that Mr. Biya and Hijo planted in favor of France, Macron, and Dupont-Moretti, who came to Cameroon.
So you are saying that there is an opposition and a credible opposition, which means that some are not real opposition to the current government.
No. When you see people parade themselves around French flags, they go and pledge allegiance to Macron. They go and pledge allegiance to Dupont-Moretti. Macron tells you that they will release certain people and they will abandon the Anglophones who are in jail. What does that inspire you? What does that tell you? You know, politics is what you are not told. Don't listen to what politicians tell you, but ask yourself the questions that are left unanswered. What are the questions that are left unanswered? Why are Anglophones still in jail? Why is Mancho BBC, Ngali, Ben Terence, all those Abakwa boys of the Coffin Resolution, what are they doing in jail? Whereas people who were arrested and levied the same charges with some Francophones have been released. Why are they still in jail? So you want to understand the infiltrators of the opposition. That's what I want to let you understand right now.
Okay, the infiltrators of the opposition, J. Lucas. When you look at the opposition as, as a member of the civil society, do you have hope in the opposition? Do they inspire hope in Cameroonians, even when you talk to people about the opposition today?
Yeah, the opposition still has a lot to contribute to the democracy of Cameroon. Mm-hmm. If we have to look back a little into the 90s, you realize that the opposition parties played a great role. We saw how the government came to its knees at one point in time, thanks to the fact that they were working as a team. Though we had fractions like that of Maigari, I think Bello Buba also, Frederick Kodok, who had to broke out at a particular point in time, but there was still that hope, because by the 1992, we still saw that the government at a certain point had to organize the tripartite. And, you know, for the fact that the 1996 constitution came as a result of the tripartite, which was greatly because of the pressure mounted on the government by the opposition party, it tells us that we still have hope with the opposition party. What is actually causing Cameroonians, or giving Cameroonians the mind that the opposition party is made up of proxies of the government, is as a result of the fact that most of these opposition parties, I want to say that at a certain point, they themselves do not understand their role within the national triangle. I said so because, for example, we think that democracy is all about you coming and being too friendly or struggling to hook up with maybe the incumbent or the ruling party. But in Africa, whenever you do that, it tells the people that, no, this is something which is not supposed to be. And most of the opposition party, they are yet to understand the society in which we live. Sociologically, the African society is not actually pruned in such a way that when you see an opposition party going always quite close to the ruling party, it means the opposition party is still standing its ground. In Africa, we have seen it time and again that most of the opposition party afterwards, they always give in. They are, to me, like I always call them, they serve like proxies to the ruling party, which is the main reason why the populists will not want certain opposition parties, and they don't believe that the opposition parties have a certain hope that could cause the populists to rely on them. But personally, I know that the opposition party, if given chance, they will do more.
That is what you think, but what is the impression of the population, the common man out there, Mr. George Mofor? Do they think that salvation can come through an opposition party?
Thank you, Kum. I think you are asking a tall order question, especially from the perspective of perception. Mm-hmm. We are talking about beneficiaries of governance, mm-hmm. Who are the citizens and the rank and file. You know, your topic there is
way out for Cameroon.
Asking for a way out for Cameroon, and then you are looking at the opposition. Mm. I think if we narrow ourselves within the political framework whereby we situate the opposition from the perspective of a political party, I think my response would definitely be not very sure that they are actually indicating or indications that they can provide hope for the Cameroonian, what you call, way out. But if we look at the opposition from the larger perspective, whereby you define some of us as members of the civil society, I want to look at it from the perspective of people who are not in the mainstream governance, not necessarily way of what you might call the CPDM, but the people who are supposed to actually be both within the parliament, the governance system, and those who are out of parliament, who are like the media, the civil society actors, that's NGOs and other operators. From that perspective, I want to say, if we look at it from that largest perspective, there is definitely a hope looking at up to those people. Let me take a simple case in point. Why I say I don't have hope for the opposition party, it is, first of all, the current thinking or the current crisis that we have now. I'm talking about the health crisis. And with the governance, the government management of it, we definitely know of the situation where there's a task force in the presidency, and we have not had a counter political party. Some of them even have what they call shadow government, and none of them have come out with their own position paper, which is an alternative to what government is proposing as a way out for the pandemic that we have. Because, Leo, let me just let you know that Cameroon government has an institution they call LANAVET. LANAVET is to produce drugs and other medication like vaccines for animals. I was discussing with a biochemist the other day, and he actually made me to understand that the same equipment and the same procedure used in preparing or producing vaccines for animals can be those same procedure and method that can be used to produce vaccines for human beings. But now the issue is an absence of policy, of priority, of giving the orientation that we should focus on producing vaccine using those same equipment. And it made it understand that for the common person to understand, the same food that you eat is the same food that a dog eats. But now the way the dog is used in eating those food is not the same way that the human being eats, but it is prepared the same way because they are all having the same mechanism in them. That is the first. I was expecting that the opposition party, after the government process or proposal on how to manage the COVID, would have had a counter and a structured proposal or opposition that is countering the government position on how it is managing the pandemic. Up to now, we don't have any. What do we hear? We either dismissal or having a quarrel about whether someone has stolen here or someone has not stolen there. And we've not had any counter, because that is the responsibility of an opposition party to propose alternative to government policy at the time. Now, but what do we see now? Why I say that I have a hope now based on the look at bigger sense of opposition. I look at what the media is doing and other civil society, what they call human rights and the rest. You see how they're actually challenging and bringing out a lot of hidden weaknesses of the government's approach. Discussion forums like this where you have special programs only to bring out some of those elements. That's what gives me hope that we can have a hope based on that thinking.
Yeah, Christian Njock, vous êtes membre de l'opposition. Vous croyez que les Camerounais ont l'espoir en vous?
Permettez déjà que je puisse corriger ce qui a été dit par M. Mofor aussi tout à l'heure. Il a dit quelque chose qui n'est pas vrai. Tous les partis politiques au Cameroun ont au moins proposé une alternative. Le MSC, ce n'est pas mes amis, mais ils ont mis sur pied Survival, une initiative. Le PCN, par le passé aussi, l'a fait. On a même proposé, on a donné un document, comme vous le savez, au Premier ministre, avec des propositions. Comment juguler, comment changer la chose. Le PCN a mis en place toute une usine de fabrication de masques et des gels pour distribuer aux populations. On a même interrogé au Parlement le ministre. Vous avez vu le président Cabral interroger le ministre. Après, le président du Parlement de l'Assemblée nationale, Kavaïga, a commencé à dire non, l'honorable Cabral ne tirait plus trop sur le ministre. Vous avez vu l'honorable Jean-Michel Niché du SDF, par exemple, tout le monde interrogé. Ce qui s'est passé, on ne peut pas quand même dire ça. Et en ce moment même, on a interrogé sur la pharmacovigilance, sur nos solutions endogènes. Qu'est-ce que nous on propose? Vraiment, il ne faut pas faire ce procès-là, l'opposition. C'est vrai que l'opposition n'est pas une unité organique, voyez-vous, mais nous, au niveau du Parti camerounais pour la réconciliation nationale, on a assez fait. Certains même dit qu'on a... Vous avez l'honorable Nourane à Douala, vous connaissez la campagne qu'elle a menée ici. On est seulement à Douala pour comprendre jusqu'au sud-ouest. Elle est allée au sud-est, c'est ce qui s'est passé. Maintenant, pour revenir donc, effectivement, sur la question que vous avez posée, non. Il faut distinguer les oppositions, parce qu'il y a plusieurs oppositions.
Okay. Comme l'a relevé.
Je suis d'accord avec Paddy, c'est pas que j'ai ri, c'est le débat qu'on fait dans les groupes WhatsApp. Donc je suis d'accord avec lui. Il y a les oppositions. Il y a maintenant, les oppositions se distinguent par quoi? Par leur vision, par leur idéologie et par leur programme de société qu'ils proposent des solutions alternatives. Et nous, on le fait si bien. Vous voyez comment on propose, vous voyez comment on est, par exemple, en coaction avec le SDF, avec Joshua, toujours au Parlement. On s'entend sur des questions, comment mener des solutions, comment attaquer le gouvernement. Et là, c'est visible, ce n'est même plus un débat à faire. Seulement, il faut comprendre que l'environnement politique, parce que je peux comprendre les gens de la société civile, ils ne sont pas confrontés à ces régimes. Ces régimes essentiellement violents, essentiellement barbares, où chaque fois que vous voulez mener une action, on s'oppose à vous, on vous tire, on vous traite comme des malpropres. Il faut comprendre que dans un environnement comme celui-là, il faut être essentiellement prudent. C'est effectif. Plus de 3/4 de la population camerounaise sont de l'opposition. En confiance à l'opposition, tout le monde, l'opposition, c'est quoi? Ça veut dire que c'est ceux qui sont contre le régime en place, contre les modalités. Non, seulement c'est que l'environnement politique ne nous permet pas toujours de gagner les élections. C'est taillé à la mesure, n'est-ce pas, du régime en place. Et aussi, on doit interroger cette population elle-même qui doit comprendre qu'elle doit prendre son destin entre les mains. Tenez, nous sommes dans un pays où on est près de 25 millions de population. Donc, on est sensiblement 14 millions de personnes qui doivent s'inscrire sur les listes électorales. Mais depuis près de 20 ans, on tourne sur maximum 6 millions, 7 millions par là. Vous avez 3 millions de populations qui vont aux élections. Qu'est-ce qu'ils entendent en retour? Forcément, le RDPC a déjà un substrat électoral sur lequel eux, ils reposent. Dans les 3 millions, peut-être qu'ils peuvent voter. Le RDPC peut avoir 1 million d'électeurs. Et comme dans un régime d'élection à pas deux tours, même avec 25%, ils vous gagnent. C'est la légalité, même s'ils ne sont pas légitimes, on assume ça. On ne peut pas accuser. Il faut que les citoyens électeurs comprennent effectivement, notamment ces gens de la société civile, qui tiennent un discours destructeur. Parce que ça, ici, il faut le dire. Soit vous êtes des partis, soit vous êtes des adversaires des partis politiques, cette société civile, je vous le dis. Soit vous comprenez que la société civile a un rôle d'accompagnement, d'influencer le pouvoir. Si nous, l'opposition a un rôle d'accéder au pouvoir, la société civile elle a un rôle d'influencer le pouvoir. Et ce n'est pas ce que l'on constate. On constate que cette société civile est plutôt complice avec les autres. Vous comprenez ce discours qu'on tient sur ce plateau, que we don't have hope to opposition. On va vers où? Alors qu'on doit changer ce régime, sauf si ce régime vous intéresse.
Andrin Atem E Ako, for more than 30 years, the opposition has been struggling to unseat the CPDM party to no avail. What can account for that? Is it a weakness or a failed strategy?
Well, Mr. Liu, that question, I would say that the answer will go to so many other African countries that we are finding the same and similar problems like the one we are facing in Cameroon. The analysis today have been that you can use the analysis of Nigeria to explain what is happening in Cameroon. You can use the analysis in Chad, Central Africa, to explain what is happening in Cameroon. So you come to realize that these are all common problems that Africa is facing. So I want us to look at it from an African point of view to pan-Africanize the question so that it doesn't only look as if it is Cameroon that is going through this particular problem. The problem is a global problem, a continent-wide problem that we are facing in Africa, especially in the black world. This is not a common, it's not something very special, Mr. Liu. You see, the core of these issues we are facing in Cameroon, and it's very important for us to really understand. The CPDM, it's an organization of France to perpetually keep 85% of the population of Cameroonians in abject poverty for several reasons, because they want to have grip over the economy of this nation and to exploit its resources. Now, on this context, we have now opposition parties who are now contesting to change what? They are only negotiating to get a little part of that exploit which is carried out away from this country, and then you have this mass, ignorant, poor population that looks up to these opposition parties, hoping that they are going to share some light. I want to go back to the genesis of 1957 of Ingwebe, who opened the UPC. That was the only party so far that Cameroon ever had to fight for the emancipation, the political full rights of this nation, the economical right of our nation, but that we saw that was eliminated by France. Now we have the current regime, which I said that these are not elected leaders by the people of this nation. These are leaders that have been appointed by the colonialists who have interest over its country so that they can use the government to have grip over the people and have grip over the resources of this country. Now let us go back to the opposition parties. Now, one of the disadvantages of these opposition parties is that the militants that are militating behind these opposition parties are people who got no will of their own, are people whose dignity and honor has been stripped away. These are people who no longer have a future in their own country. When it now comes to time of election, the ruling party can always, I keep repeating, that is why ever since 1984, the same party has been ruling in this country with over 300 and something opposition parties, have not been able, join all of it, merge them together, cannot still in any election win CPDM. Why? Because they do not have the resources and the, how will I put it, the capacity to contest against the ruling party, because the ruling party is being kept by another stronger hand, except that it is time where the colonialists want to decide who next is going to take over power. So when it comes to the period of election, what happens is that they can always buy the consciences of these voters who are going to vote, because these are people who no longer find their future in their own country. So if they have a little opportunity to have a means to probably see some opportunity somewhere, they will seize it and sell out their birthright. That is a position at which, Mr. Liu, the system have kept Cameroonians, and that is why I say that if opposition, I don't have problems with opposition. Oppositions are good in times when it is not a period for elections. But when it comes to period of election, there is no need for these oppositions to oppose or to go in divided ranks to the poll. They were supposed now to merge and bind themselves together and say, this is a time where we can truly affect changes. This is a time where we can really make the decision on where we want our country to go to. But they still go into the polls in divided ranks, which shows that the oppositions themselves are not out for the interest of the Cameroonians. And I'll go on to say this, that from the CPDM right up to the 1984 to where it is right now has only made life in Cameroon become very expensive for the Cameroonians. I keep saying that when you are dealing with an individual that has a third party behind controlling that individual, life becomes very expensive because it becomes like a middleman or becomes like a démarché. From the 1984 to now, Cameroonian or the economy of Cameroon has only been growing into mass poverty, putting the people under duress, high taxes, lack of a health sector. We don't have good education. We don't have good economy. All these things weighs on the common people. And that is why I'm saying that, take a look at Grand Look, Mr. Leo. We had the Grand National Dialogue. We spent billions there to no avail. The common people are only still suffering. We went down to the decentralization, people are still suffering, nothing is happening. We went down to the regional councillors, people are, that is the suffering of the common people only keep increasing when the government keeps adding organizations, political parties, churches, all those things rip away the little which the people could even grip on. So these are the things that I'm saying, that it is easier, Mr. Leo, I keep saying this, than for us to have middlemen who have dual nationalities where they are special citizens in their own country and then they are second-hand citizens in another country. It is better, I would just say, that we have Macron to come and lead us so that we don't have middle person, because the life is becoming too expensive where the middleman begins to negotiate and cut his own part, so and then what comes to the people is not enough. So these are the things that I'm saying, that the opposition parties are not out. Nothing wrong for them to, create opposition is good. That means that all other opinions are going to merge to give the Cameroonians what they deserve, to come out with what is going to be best in the period of election when people have to go and cast out their vote. The opposition at that period do not need to oppose themselves because they are going to build. Okay. They need to come together and give the people what they want. And permit me, Mr. Leo, please. We need to gain our sovereignty. And we have to regain that, and we have to fight for it and take it back. Okay. Because it's not going to come easily. It's not going to come easily. Paddy Asang, for 30 and above years, the opposition has been struggling to take power. To no avail. Who do you blame for that? Is it the population or your lack of strategy?
Listen, Leo. There is no political party that is called the opposition. We should make that one clear. And if people say they build civil society, they should identify themselves with a political school of thoughts, because you can be of the opposition and you say you want to continue with Mr. Biya's Jacobinist system, or do what happened in Burkina Faso. Just remove Paul to replace him with Maurice. That, for us, is not opposing anything. What the Cameroonian people need is to overhaul the system, and overhauling the system is getting and touching the constitution. And I strongly believe that we can throw tantrums at each other, but if we Cameroonians who don't like the Jacobinist Francophonized system or the France-Afrique, we have collectively failed, because people come in and think that they know it all, and those who have been there crying we must Kiwi tire, roaming the streets of Bamenda when there was the Anglophone crisis, roaming the streets of Boya when they were under the Anglophone crisis, going back into parliament, trying to push the CPDM one-party system, or with a best majority, with some pseudo opposition, and then we can't sit here and people tell us that the opposition has failed. But you want to understand that that parliament is monocolored. It is multicolored. It's not monocolored. And when one party goes on, the few parliamentarians that it has and stands there alone, and the others ally or do opposition at geometrical variations, then they come and sit here and tell us that, oh, the opposition, you have to identify who is what is the program that you have for the people. Where I belong to that school of thought that I think that there is no compromise to make with the French as it happened in 1992, because the modus operandi and the lie motto, the motto was federalism and away with the French. Every Cameroonian, UPC, those fundamental Cameroonians, the one Cameroonians, they buy to that rhetoric. But when people come today and they tell you that, oh, CFA is a good thing. Oh, we cannot do without France because France is our historical, economic and partners, and so on and so forth. How do you expect those people who have been in the opposition for 30 years to work with them? Opposition is not a political party, but it's a school of thought that will permit our people to come out of a particular system. So when Ebako and all these people of the civil society are talking, I want the civil society to present us their political program, what they intend for Cameroonians. They should not come and say that, oh, the people are going to parliament to go and do this. No. Or if there is no parliament, alternative to parliament is war. So if the civil society wants to go to war, then let them declare that war and tell us that they belong to those people who believe in war, and then they join them, and then we will keep on preaching our message that we have been preaching for 30 years. So the blame is shared, and we, all of us collectively, we have to take responsibility for what has been going in Cameroon. But not to say that the opposition, no. Opposition is not a political party, and opposition is not a political philosophy. Opposition is not a political program. We have to identify political parties, oppositions according to their program and according to the projection that they have for the people in 30 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. Okay, that's Paddy. How we identify opposition. Okay. And put an apple and oranges. Okay. No, that way. Thank you.
Okay, Paddy, thank you very much. A very disturbing connection situation between us and Germany, where Paddy is talking from. But we also observe that there's a lot of fight amongst the opposition parties, and many persons are asking why they would not rather work for Cameroonians that spend time fighting amongst themselves. Who is their enemy or rival here?
Well, we also have to understand that these opposition parties are human beings and they are Cameroonians too. When we look at it from the point of they fighting themselves, I want to believe that every human being is quite quick to react when you stand against he or she. But now, what they also fail to understand is the fact that they have become a particular class of persons whom the populists are depending on. They hold them with high esteem. As such, even if they have anything to do that has to come out to the public, it should not be things that will cause the people to start losing trust on them. Opposition parties in Cameroon, except for the fact that some of them really do not have a clear-cut program, and some of them, they are having a repetition of program, especially from that of the CPDM. Like Mr. Mofor said earlier, I think Christian also, he said something, he came in immediately and tried to correct what he said. What I rather see here with opposition parties is that they have difficulties in implementing their programs because of the rigorous system the government has in place. And the first thing they need to look at is what to do with the constitution. Now, I'll still go back to the 90s. What happened between 1992 and 1996 to every Cameroonian and political parties, if they can go back to study it and see where they had their strength? I want to believe that they are going to make great strides and they are going to suppress the ruling party. Now, the problem with the ruling party is not really that they are too strong. The problem with the opposition is that they do not have a common front. If only they can sit up to have a common front, then the ruling party is not as strong as they are. Now, unlike the way many people had thought about it, I have come to realize as a member of the civil society, since we have a lot to do with people and we talk with a lot of people, I've come to realize that most of the people who have developed voter apathy is rather coming from the from the opposition party, not the ruling party. Because when these fightings are ongoing, the people tend to believe that there is no reason for me to go to the polls. But if the opposition party, they have a common front, it is going to encourage, that will spur the populists to see reasons why they have to take to the polls. I still believe that there is a way out in Cameroon through the ballot box. However, it is not going to be that easy. The first thing the opposition parties need to do is to look at what is required in the constitution for they to have a better place. If they sit and they think that it's going to fall from heaven, it is not possible. The government is never strong except when the people are weak. It is coming from the weakness of the people. Now, this is what is happening. These opposition parties have not realized that lobbying is part of opposing the government. And you have several ways you could lobby. Most people who have come to power, let me go back to the case of Andrin Atem. Andrin Atem had thought that immediately after the independence of La République du Cameroon in the 1960s, he was going to be the president. But that was not the case. People like Aidjo had to go to France. They did lobby. And at the end of the day, they were made the president. Now, we have realized in Cameroon that France is actually the hand holding the ruling party.
The kingmaker.
The kingmaker. But what do we do? That's the big question. Should we keep on having some sort of, should we develop voter apathy because of that? No. I said it some time ago, especially from where I'm coming from. I said it in my 16. I think the last municipal election that took place, which was handed over to late Ekema by the current senator. I said it that if the young people would come out and vote and mount pressure from this base, where the basic lawmakers will come up to go to that place where the government will start relying on, a lot is going to change. Let me take the case of the 90s. In the 90s, when these opposition parties had a certain number within the parliament, it was only obvious that the sitting government at the time had to come into certain deals with them just to ensure that they should have a majority. Now, the government could not actually succeed in the 1992 election but for the fact that they had to go into certain agreement with the opposition parties. Now, this already comes again to tell us that the opposition parties have a lot of strength, but the problem here is that is the division we have amongst them. Not the repetition of political opposing political parties. For example, if I were to form a party right now, I will not think of coming up with just a party. I could meet somebody like Mr. Ebako, I could meet somebody like Mr. Mofor and say, okay, this is what I've identified. You already have a political party. These are my ideas. The opposition parties in Cameroon are focusing so much in removing beer, but forgetting about the fact that the people down there where the lawmakers will come from, they need to understand what to do.
Okay,
yes.
They need to understand what has to happen.
Yes.
Mr. Sama Abamugwa from Boya has this contribution to make.
Opinion with respect to the first topic is a bit mitigated. Mitigated because I am one of those who has always believed that the fall of the system in power cannot be exogenic. I've always believed that it will always be endogenic, and that is from within its own system. It is a system that has created its own contradictions and its own internal oppositions, which would eventually cause its downfall. The present cream of opposition parties that we have, with their resources, be they financial or administrative or diplomatic, put on the table, cannot and have not been able to remove the present system or the present government. That is why I strongly believe that the opposition as it is in Cameroon today does not inspire and cannot inspire even in the furthest future. The only hope for Cameroon and Cameroonians who yearn for change and veritable change is the eventual implosion of the regime. Again, as I said, the regime, by its own excesses, its own ego, its own errors, has successfully created contradictions within itself. And there are those contradictions that will end up crippling the system. Bear with me, and I say it with all authority, that we are living the after-Biya era, and the ongoing infighting within the system shall eventually lead to a breakthrough for Cameroonians. Unfortunately, the opposition, as you ask, is largely divided into factions and can be classified under different headings. One, I am looking at the system-created opposition. Opposition parties that have been created by the system to give a semblance of the existence of a veritable opposition in the country. There are many of such parties, a good number of them. We have the hungry opposition, those who have used their positions as owners of opposition parties and opposition ideas to look for survival. That's the survivalists who use it as a means for their own survival. We're looking at the opportunistic opposition, those who are just adventurers and who want to venture into the game and hoping that some opportunities may fall on their tables. And then we have the few who are the genuine opposition movements, who unfortunately are those that have been reduced to the fringes or the margins. Permit me say that much of what is happening within the ranks of the uninspiring opposition too has to do with the manipulations and the machinations of the party in power, which is politics. And I have no problem with that. As long as I can put disorder in your house for my own success, that is the game. And that is what the government has successfully done. Impoverished the opposition, impoverished and orphaned the Cameroonian people, such that it has killed the zeal of political participation in the ordinary Cameroonian. If you were to ask how many Cameroonians effectively register for elections, how many Cameroonians effectively take part in voting, how many Cameroonians are really interested in political discourses, it is laughable. And so that's why I strongly think that the opposition as we have now, unless some miraculous metamorphosis takes place within its ranks, the opposition as we have now is largely uninspiring. And the only hope for Cameroonians who need...
Okay, thank you there, Mr. Sama Abamungwa. You followed him actually paint the picture as it is from an objective perspective. I don't know whether you agree with what he is presenting out there, Mr. Njock.
Partially.
Okay.
You see again, let us extrapolate a bit and look at, because I'm happy when we are talking here, especially using opposition generally to mean political parties. And then let's take a case of a party which I will consider an opposition party on its results from the days multipartyism was introduced in this country. That is the Cameroon Democratic Union. Now, let us look at their work, because if a political party essentially is supposed to be for electioneering and they have been demonstrating that they have what they call a stronghold, which is the Noon division. We will want to look at why the people who are in Noon, why they have been voting for them. Is it because of the results and the improvement of their life, their living conditions? Is that the reason why
I've had opportunities to talk to many guys from the Noon division. You're talking about the CDU of late Adamu Ndamjoya.
That's right.
The situation in Fumban, I've been to Fumban, the situation of the town is not good. They know very well that the town is not developing. But they will tell me that they prefer to vote their brother. That's all.
Well, I mean, the other people, the CPDM people, are also their brother.
I don't know. So, to them, voting the CPDM is voting somebody from Yaoundé. Yeah.
No, but Leo, what I'm trying to paint here is, first of all, you are talking about whether the opposition can
inspire,
give us hope and all of that. You will discover that there's an issue of contradiction and inconsistency. I was taking that there to transpose it with what has been happening to, there's another division called Njock Ekele. Njock Ekele, since the advent of multipartyism, has always, unless my memory fails me, had a majority of the opposition party. CPM has never had a majority seat.
UPC.
UPC.
Yeah.
But look at what they have been doing with their own victory also. The first victory they had,
they traded for ministerial positions.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. And now you when you look at the party as it stands now, with just a small misunderstanding, they start going to ranks. That's the only party that has given us reason to have UPC K, UPC N, UPC B, and all of those things using the alphabet.
That is Ogbelen wins from there and is made minister.
Beautiful.
And then Kodok works so hard on the field, and then when he wins, Ogbelen is pushed out, and then Kodok is taken in. Yeah.
You now see now with the advent now of another. I don't want to probably use it for me to be accused of hate language. When Cabral came in, because also he is considered a son of the Njock Ekele and all of that. They now rejected the original, what they call a historical party, whose founder, the effigy and the corpse is found there. They now rejected, and they went now to Nyobe, and they went now to Cabral and all of that. It first of all tells you that political parties in this country, they are founded not on ideological foundation where they have a consistency that the average person can look up to and identify, because it's an issue of not your brother or your sister, it's an issue of ideology. Now when you look at, and I love some of the titles that they have by way of names, you have a party like my brother over there, their party is talk about reconciliation. Who is reconciling who, and we are having all the numerous crises in this country. We've never had a roadmap on a reconciliation based on the fact that if what is going on now, especially in the North and Southwest, has not gone through because probably the current governing party has not been able to manage it very well, what is the alternative that the Party of Reconciliation, PCRN, has actually brought on the table?
They're proposing communal federalism.
What does that mean?
Anyway, he's going to.
What does that mean in terms of the cause of the crisis in Anglophone Cameroon? Was the cause of Anglophone Cameroon based on look? This is another what we call hypocrisy. That you see politicians using big empty language to bamboozle the average citizen.
Let me explain.
The issue there is that the person who created that party before Cabral came in is somebody from the north area, and Boko Haram has been decimating and virtually, because the same people that Boko Haram came and recruited and joined them to be creating bombs on them. It was because also they were also against because from them the history of those people there, they have been using it as what they call mutong, or just voters to be used. But when the people come there and get the elections, they go away and they don't come back to them. So they say, okay, an alternative has come. But now we are saying that Cameroon has all the crises that we're talking about. Do we have a roadmap for a party that calls itself a Constitution party that has proven that this is an alternative to the current management system of the crisis that we have in Cameroon?
Okay, Christian Njock, you have been clear.
Oui. Permit me to say something. Firstly, to my my neighbor of my right. Even when you have the common front, what are the reaction of the government? or the population? You have these two entities. Quelle est la réaction des uns des autres? Le cas, par exemple, du code électoral, on se retrouve à Yaoundé. Quelle a été la réaction des populations? Rien. On s'est réunis tout le monde pour dire, on parle de la même voix. Qu'est-ce que les autres ont fait? Rien. Quand ces partis politiques sont mis en mal, le seul arbitre, c'est le peuple. C'est le peuple qui doit suivre ces gens. Et un peuple qui ne s'inscrit pas, qui ne s'intéresse pas à la politique, c'est un problème fondamental. On doit comprendre ça. C'est-à-dire, on voit comment le gouvernement viole notre constitution, notamment l'article 3, quand on voit section 3, où on dit que les partis politiques concourent à l'expression du suffrage. Ce n'est pas ça qui est fait. Voyez-vous. Maintenant, le peuple donc, doit être celui qui arbitre, notamment. Maintenant, je vais revenir sur M. Mofor. Il a dit deux choses. Une chose et son contraire, en fait. La première chose, il parle de la réconciliation. Oui, nous parlons de la réconciliation. Nous sommes le parti camerounais pour la réconciliation nationale. Nous voulons réconcilier les Camerounais avec leur histoire. Nous voulons réconcilier les Camerounais avec eux-mêmes. Notre projet est assez clair. Je comprends que vous êtes de la société civile, peut-être société civile, vous intéressez à autre chose, vous vous intéressez par la chose politique. Notre programme est assez clair. Notre forme de l'État, la question anglophone, nous avons proposé une solution alternative que nous avons défendue au grand dialogue national. On a appelé ça le fédéralisme communautaire, c'est-à-dire un État qui nous ressemble, un État qui prend ses sources d'avant le 4 mars 1916, c'est-à-dire le jour où on a partitionné le Cameroun en deux, parce que nous sommes une même chose. Il faut un État qui ressemble à nos identités, à notre identité, à nos réalités anthropologiques et sociales. Un État où vous et moi, on se reconnaît. Il ne s'agit pas de l'hypocrisie. Un État où vous allez mieux vous placer, mieux vous exercer. Parce que la crise anglophone, moi je suis un Congo, je suis Sawa. Quand vous avez qu'on appelle l'ancien doyen du Sénat, Tif Moukote. Qu'est-ce que Tif Moukote a dit au Premier ministre? You and me, are we Sawa or not? She has not telling that he is anglophone. Il a dit au Premier ministre que are we Sawa ou not. Donc ça veut dire qu'il se reconnaît comme étant Sawa. Cette crise historique, ce problème, ce contentieux historique qui nous divise autour de la langue, une langue étrangère que certaines veulent revendiquer, vraiment il faut dépasser, c'est notre position aujourd'hui, il faut dépasser ça et réguler définitivement cette question. Parce que tout ce qu'on fait aujourd'hui ne changera rien. Et donc, nous avons proposé une solution crédible, historique même, du genre, c'est-à-dire le fédéralisme communautaire qui va résoudre définitivement la question de la crise anglophone. Maintenant, je reviens vers vous. Tout à l'heure, vous dites une chose en contraire. Vous convoquez Fumban, vous convoquez l'Union Ekele, mais vous tombez dans le même piège que les autres analystes. Vous dites que le parti a été créé par les gens du Nord. Donc, le parti doit donc ressembler aux gens du Nord. Non, il faut sortir de cet ancrage dans lequel le régime veut nous emballer pour dire, parce que Kaba est d'Union Ekele, le parti doit être Union Ekele. Parce que Kam est de l'Ouest, le parti doit être de l'Ouest. Ou parce que Frunji est du Nord-Ouest, le parti doit être le parti Anglo-Bami. Il faut sortir de cette tribalisation des partis politiques. Un parti politique, aucun parti politique ne peut gérer un pouvoir au Cameroun avec sa communauté. Personne. Il faut gérer avec tout le monde, avec toutes les entités nationales. Un parti politique se définit donc sur son implantation nationale et territoriale et de sa vision à accéder au pouvoir. Moi, je reviens sur ce que mon voisin disait tout à l'heure. Il y a une difficulté fondamentale à l'expression de liberté au Cameroun. C'est à ce niveau où c'est difficile. Et les seuls qui doivent encourager l'opposition, c'est l'opposition morte, c'est-à-dire les citoyens qui ne disent rien ou qui cautionnent la question.
The silent majority.
Oui, le silence majoritaire de cette population qui ne dit rien. Je vous ai dit tout à l'heure que vous avez 25 millions de Camerounais, donc au moins 15 millions en âge de voter. On a à peine 3 millions qui vont au vote. Vous avez 6 millions, c'est-à-dire si tout le monde pouvait s'inscrire, aller voter, surveiller le vote, le lendemain on gagne les élections. Qu'est-ce que les populations font? Il faut saluer l'opposition, je vous assure. C'est difficile. Il faut saluer les gens comme Njock Fundi qui ont tenu 30 ans avec ce système violent, c'est-à-dire on fait tous les pièges. Ils sont là pour donner de leur vie, pour proposer des solutions alternatives au pays. Il faut comprendre que ce n'est pas chose facile. Face à ce régime essentiellement dictatorial, violent, avec ses soutiens extérieurs, dont Paddy Asang aime toujours parler de jacobinisme, et la France, que tout le monde, que vous tous vous avez cité ici sur ce plan, pour comprendre que pour renverser ce régime, ce serait, c'est-à-dire c'est d'abord une masse critique électorale. Et qui dit masse critique électorale, c'est-à-dire que l'ensemble de la population en âge de voter doit s'inscrire sur liste électorale, doit s'intéresser à la politique et doit comprendre que c'est la politique qui guide notre problème.
Okay. Tout
à l'heure, mon voisin Edouard l'a dit, si les jeunes étaient sortis en février dernier et allaient voter, on ne serait pas là. On a des jeunes qui contrôlent ces entités et on serait loin. Moi, par exemple, quand je suis allé candidat, comme vous savez que j'étais candidat aux législatives, et même au régional, tout le monde disait que l'enfant là va où? On l'a vendu, ainsi de suite, les grands.
Peut-être que tu ne serais pas ici.
Oui, peut-être, non, c'est toujours là, c'est pas parce que... Oui, tu vois donc, c'est cette même population qui veut une chose et son contraire. Soyez donc cohérents.
Ok.
Voilà.
Yes.
Very briefly.
Yes, I think what you just said, the last thing you said, right? It is not the issue of the youth. They did not really see as though you have been sold. The major challenge they did see was that perhaps you did not give them a clear vision that would have caused them to accept that this young man is going in for this position. This is the problem. Over time, the opposition party, like I said earlier, they take the same modus operandi of the ruling party to tell the people that they are opposition.
What are you selling?
What are you selling?
Insulting CPDM, or you are giving an alternative
that is it.
to the current status quo.
That is it.
Okay.
On propose des alternatives. Est-ce que les gens comprennent dans un environnement? Je prends le cas. Vous allez dire à un jeune universitaire, engage-toi dans un parti politique. Il va dire, pardon, ma vie est en danger, ainsi de suite. C'est pour ça que vous dites que comprenez le contexte. Le contexte est essentiellement difficile.
That one of the issues is almost everybody is talking about the fact that no party is presenting an alternative. But I think we are not also doing enough to work up to these parties for them to present their respective manifestos, because you will not run for the presidential election without a political manifesto.
Yes, but
même pour créer le parti, même pour créer le parti politique, une des pièces pour créer un parti, c'est avoir un manifeste. Donc tous les partis ont ces manifestes.
Many Cameroonians do not take the pains to find out. But
just a minute.
No, you guys are marginalizing Andrin. Yes.
You're creating a business. Let's just do the synonym of a political party as a business. Is it the customers go and look for you, or you go look for those customers?
Yeah, some even boycott
the consummation of a particular good.
Yeah. Some even boycott coming to TV to sell themselves. So you ask yourself the essence for the creation, that is, people have to run after them.
Yes.
Yeah, you're perfectly right. Yeah,
mais firstly, l'environnement doit être normal.
Non, mais voici l'environnement. Venez vous vendre. Pourquoi vous ne venez pas?
Oui, y compris les médias. Nous sommes, c'est pas toujours évident. Comme tu nous ouvres la voie, c'est pas les autres médias ailleurs, c'est pas facile. On fait même des médias parce qu'on s'exprime au Cameroun. Ça, vous le savez au moins.
Okay. Andrin Atem E Ako, we are talking about inspiring the Cameroonians. We have above 317 political parties in Cameroon today. Which one do you believe in? Which one inspires hope? How do they even hope to take power from their little corners? Seemingly, each village is supposed to have a party, going by what we have today.
Mr. Leo, what aches me is that they are, how will I put it, they are taking advantage over the Cameroonians, the population, the masses, who are not very enlightened and educated. I think that is the way I look at it. Because when you live in a society where majority of the people are not enlightened, they tend to have their hope being despaired and being derailed, where their hopes are not being realized. We are talking here of a country which I would say that ever since the colonial master put the diaper on this country, the country has not been able to remove that diaper which we are still talking today. We are talking here of party politics, and we are not looking at what the people of this country really do want. You see, democracy, Mr. Liu, is not for poor persons. It's for very sounded and healthy-minded human beings. When you bring in a system like democracy in a country such as Cameroon, which 85% of its population lives in abject poverty, I think that's an abuse of democracy, or that's an abuse to human rights. That is, you are taking advantage of the people's ignorance by allowing them to practice democracy. For you repeat one thing over and over. This is 60 years under a democratic system, and we are still talking about democracy. I think it's madness. Chadians that we consider them to be, how will I put it, illiterates, they have been able to charter their own future, to say we don't want democracy, we don't want France. We want to decide and build our own systems. How many Cameroonians know the genealogy of democracy? How many of them understand the essence of democracy that was instituted in America? They don't have any idea. They feel that it's like a game of chance. It's like you go and play Paris foot, you go and play, you go and gamble, and you are having a game of chance. I might win, I might not win. A president that came into power from 60 without election, 84 without election, and you are telling me that you want to go and win him in an election. Are you the one who put him there? There are things that Cameroonians need to really sit down and rethink. I'm not saying that we should go and begin to fight against the government. No, we should not fight against ourselves. Cameroonians need to sit down and try to figure out what really the problem of Cameroon is. The problem of Cameroon is that we have a nation coming from the West that feels that they have all the say in our country. They feel that they can decide who next is going to be our president. That's why we realize that almost a presidential seat now has become a lifetime appointment, because somebody wants him there, not you people. Look at Chad. Even Idriss Déby came on national TV, told the world that France put him under duress to go in again for another term. This is just to tell you that we have dictators coming in from the West. So that's an abuse of democracy, that's an abuse of human rights. And then the Human Rights Security Council sits up there and says nothing when the rights of the Cameroonians are being abused. And these are the same people we go on calling on them to come and assist us when they are the genealogy of the very problems that we are going through. We cannot apply the same system and we expect a different result. We need, I kept saying, until Cameroonians begin to build their own things, you will never have respect for any of these foreign countries. Every other thing we have been dependent on them. And that's a huge challenge. Mr. Leo, I discovered, and in all my analysis I have made, I have come to this one solution, this one conclusion. You see, as long and no matter how they consider us to be a third world nation, and how much they have abused us and exploited us, how much reserve France is keeping on the behalf of this nation, Mr. Leo, I feel that if our leaders, I understand that their hands are tied, but they must not stand alone. If you have taken that responsibility to reflect your nation and you realize that you are under duress because a lot is at stake, I think that you should take a different approach. You must not still stay in power. You can find another strategy and see how you can either you let somebody else who is able to resist and is able to charter a better future for its own countrymen. Because when you have a system like this, Mr. Liu, that exercises its own tyranny over those that are beneath it to support the prices of its own enemies, that today Cameroonians are fighting Cameroonians with all other opposition parties, that now become as if our problem is language. When Chinese are in Cameroon, do not even speak English or French, and they are doing well. How can it be a problem of language? It's a problem of bad leadership. Other nationals come in here, 1-2 years, they are all smiling, shining, going back to their countries and millionaires and billionaires. Why Cameroonians are plunging into abject poverty? And this is not the case only in Cameroon. It's all over Africa.
Okay, Andrin, thank you. Let me take a few messages. Good evening. This is Maurice from Yaoundé. I don't see any hope in the opposition party in Cameroon because the opposition party is always the last hope when the ruling party fails the people. But in Cameroon, for over 3 decades, these opposition parties have failed us. Just imagine the last presidential elections. We could see Joshua Osei from the SDF party, who ran as presidential candidate, finally left after losing and started running for the seat of Fikafut president. This is just to tell us that the opposition in Cameroon don't have a sense of direction, and everybody is fighting for his or her stomach for their generations to come. Thank you, Maurice. This one says, greetings to all in the studio and thanks for this opportunity to air out our minds. I don't really think we have opposition parties in Cameroon that can change the status quo. What we have is just certain popular and fortunate individuals who make use of their knowledge to maneuver over a set of frustrated youth to make money. If I'm wrong, can someone tell me why opposition leaders can't speak in one voice in Cameroon? All attempts to obtain a coalition of opposition parties has always futile due to egocentrism. Derek Walla is writing from Chang. Good evening to you, Derek. Mr. Liu, good evening. Our opposition parties cannot pull Cameroon out of the present situation. The main reason is greed. Or if the opposition can form a common front where representatives of all the parties in the union are bent on change, the ruling party will not be able to match their force. I give you and your family example. The CDU party of late Adamu Damjoya has never lost. Okay? Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program so much, especially when I see Mr. Atem E Ako on the panel. He goes straight to the point, and I learn a lot from him, though he does not have enough time to elaborate. Thanks. Jean is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you. The opposition does not but help to confuse the citizens with their insolent campaigns. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The problem isn't the opposition nor the people. The problem is the electoral code. Whether you vote CPDM or not, they are going to win. They have the yam and the knife. Julius is also writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm enjoying your program. It's educative. Mr. E Ako is very right. All the opposition in Cameroon are greedy. Everybody wants to be president. Papa Oyoyo is writing from Douala. Good evening to you. Hello, Prime. I'm writing from Kumba. My contribution concerning the way out of Cameroon with the opposition. I think opposition in Cameroon has failed to establish a systematic agenda for Cameroonian politically, economically, and security-wise. There is power in unity, and that is what is lacking with the many parties in Cameroon. If opposition can define a roadmap for Cameroonians without seeking power grab, without a consolidation, and bringing economic benefits to Cameroonians. Okay, this one from Sweden. Mr. Liu, we can only trace our country Cameroon on paper from 1960. If the first article on our constitution, which is the federal form of our state, has been distorted when it was clearly stated that the form will never be tampered with, then trust me, that is where our problem begins. If we do not address that distortion, then we will almost never come to a lasting solution to the problems of Cameroon. Politicians and party politics can't help us. My take. Okay, my brother Mofor writing from Sweden there. Hello, Leo. Good evening to you and panelists and all your viewers. In order to move this country forward, we need a federal structure. If we don't do this, you will not recognize this country. Post Paul Biya. A country can't be decentralized with power still in Yaoundé. Please, we love this country, but things need to change. Our problem is the form of state and management. Let us not be shy to have this conversation. Thank you. Achiri is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Achiri. Good evening, all. Gembe Eric from Limbe. No elections shall remove the present regime, whether coalition or not. I can never vote the present government is out. Good evening to you. This one says, please tell your panelists that Chadians are not illiterate. We have chosen Frank Emmanuel Biya as our choice. Mr. E Ako needs to learn more about politics. Okay, we are going to, I will ask Paddy Asang one last question. Many persons think that a solution can only come from the opposition through a coalition. Why has it been very difficult for you guys to talk under one umbrella?
Leo, I told you when we just started this program that the problem is not that the opposition is not talking or they don't want to talk. The problem is that the opposition has been infiltrated, and the Jacobinist French supported regime knows how to do that best. And it brings people within its ranks, that it brings them and infiltrates what you people call the opposition. Remember, the opposition is not a political party. There are political parties with concurrent ideologies that work together, and that is what we are talking when they are talking about 1992. 1992, not everybody voted for Frundi. Frundi was not the candidate, SDF could not make it. It was a conglomerate of people from the civil society, UPC, opposition party, who were clamoring for a federal system, trying to unite Cameroon under a federal system. That is what we are talking about. So we should be honest enough to say that you will never get it when you get satellite political parties created by the CPDM to sit around and tell you that they want a regional federalism based on what? Because we have two post-colonial identity. If we want to talk about cultural federalism, that one is acceptable. But when you talk about regional federalism, who created the regions? The regions are per decree. So there are many factors that are coming in play in this situation. We have to consider the fact that, because you see, I have a political casket, and I'm not here to talk for my political casket. But that masquerade that was that happened in Yaoundé, where people went and sat and said they were talking about electoral code. No, the premise for a better electoral code has to do with the reform of the constitution. That one I have to tell you, because the voters' age has to be looked into, the statute of Elecam, and then 2-round elections. Those things cannot be determined by Elecam, because the Elecam laws depend on the constitutions. So those are the things that we should look into. And that's why I tell you that people have infiltrated oppositions. And when we are called, wherever we are called, we are asked to come and sit. We come and sit and listen to the people, and we put our reserves. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. But I want to confess to you today that Cameroonians, in their vast majority, it's not that regional federation per decree that people are saying that Mr. Biya sits there and can dissolve the regional council when he likes. It doesn't work like that. Federation has to go back to the spirit of our coming together and then be nationalized, so much so that it cannot be touched. And there are political parties who can incarnate that, and if they come together and then fusion themselves, articulate that well to the people will come out and they will stand for that idea. It has happened before. We should not pretend to be inventing the wheel. We did not invent democracy. It was imposed on us. And Cameroon has that peculiarity that it has two post-colonial identity. And the only other country that has such an identity is Canada, and it is very prosperous. So we should capitalize on that and stop deceiving Cameroonians, telling people that it should be this, it should be that. No, we can have a cultural federation. That one is possible, or a post-colonial political federation. Those are the two alternatives. The third one would be some kind of geo-ecological or economic federation where we put the Cameroon in regions where what they produce. The littoral region is rich in fishery and husbandry. The northern region is rich in textile. The savannah region is rich in that. And then the east region is rich in wood and so on. Those are the things that, but when people come and tell you that they want some kind of a regional federation based on the decrees that were promulgated by Mr. Biya, they just want the system and keep our people in servitude for the interest of France and Macron, Dupont-Moretti, and all those people. We have to cut the umbilical cord with them. We did it one time, and we did not succeed because we did not want to pick arms to work on people's corpses. And we are mature enough, and we have learned from other countries
Paddy,
do it with arms.
Okay, Paddy Asang. Thank you, Paddy. We are moving straight to our second topic, which has to do with the elite, Anglophone elite, whether there is a possibility for them to redeem themselves. I'll start with you, Judge, Mr. Mofor. When we talk of Anglophone elites, can they redeem themselves? Can Anglophone elites redeem themselves from fallen glory? The first question that comes to mind is, who is an Anglophone elite?
That's great. You know, that was, to honest with you, that is the topic that attracted me to to come here this evening. And I will shock some people outside there to tell the population outside there that this thing they call Anglophone crisis has exposed a lot of what you might call things which are considered banal or mystery, to actually let some people see themselves as superior, because elitism is about cutting yourself away from the masses and demonstrating some ability, some superior. I don't know what you make of when you hear of political documents like constitution, decree, instructions, and you discover that the question now is the people were first of all acting like interface between the government and the masses, especially from Northwest and Southwest. Ask yourself, after this crisis, can they still, with authority, still say the same thing that they were saying before this crisis? And the point now, which I agree with you, where you're asking, can they redeem themselves from foreign glory? That glory that they had then, where did it come from?
How real, how genuine was it?
Good. Because, and this topic is related to the first topic, because you find people who were not generational. They were not thinking about the next generation. They were thinking only about the next elections. So to them, they were just short-sighted. Anything that used to happen there, and elites were only useful when it comes around to give bags of rice and salt and soap, only during election time. So their own elitism was not sustained. And the moment the decree comes out and you are no more an elite, your relevance becomes different. And again, Yaoundé is doing it in such a way whereby they come from the same village or the same town and the same whatever. They replace you with another brother with whom you are not even agreeing while you were up there.
Remove Ngole and replace him with Ngole. Yes.
So it makes it so ridiculous that you see today you are an elite, tomorrow you are a he-goat. Because nobody even, and it becomes so terrible that you see when they are talking after they are no more there. They attack a lot. They are calling for a lot of sympathy. They are the greatest critic when it comes to the action of the person who has replaced them. They start telling you, when I was there, in Boya they used to call some people I was, because they believe in some past history that they don't have anything to show. And now this Anglophone crisis, where power now has gone to what I call now the highway, where you find out that rat-tack young people with guns ask you to sit down, stand up, jump, and you ask how should I jump. It tells you that there was no consistency in leadership. They were not demonstrating any form of sustenance in the elitism that they had. And now they say in pidgin, we don't make the sex of whether a man or a woman foul. No, we are saying, or personally, I think that we need, and I don't know why this our reverend person died without actually having this conference to come again. Because that would have been what people promised during the first Anglophone, all Anglophone Congress in 1993. And if Cardinal Tumi's own had held, you would have seen how people would have rejected, because some people who came and said so many good things in 1993, when they saw how they changed and became something else, that led now to this, what they call now the Anglophone crisis, where young people went to, because they gave a lot of hope to a lot of people, but after that, they disappeared. And so we are saying that this Anglophone crisis has come now to demonstrate that we don't have what we might consider now a unique leadership from the Northwest and Southwest that can speak on behalf of every other person. And we are hoping that after now, a generation will emerge, and I believe that generation is going to be from somebody who was born after what they call 1960, whether we are complaining whether we had independence or reunification.
Yes, is this the time to prove and to know who an elite is from the Southwest and Northwest region?
Yeah, Mr. Leo, it is indeed the time to prove. But what is quite sad is the fact that most of these elites who had it very much in the past Of course, they were superior. They were superior in several things, economically, intellectually. They had a certain status, which at the end of the day, it gave the people the reason to, or some reasons to see them as demigods. You know, these elites, they acted as intermediaries between the people and the government, and they enjoyed a lot of privileges. I did say they enjoyed, because I am not actually looking at the privileges they had before, prior to the limelight of the Anglophone crisis and during this period of the Anglophone crisis. I want to personally believe that the elites are going to have it pretty hard after this Anglophone crisis. Now, you know, prior to the 50th anniversary, which was celebrated in Buea, it was already an eye-opener that most of these elites have not been working for the people. I remember passing through a certain road where some of the elites were in control, and I stopped for a while. I had to look at what nature of the tar they were putting on the road, because some roads were actually being constructed in Buea. Then I noticed that where this work was ongoing, a lot was being done which was not right. But you know, for the fact that the elite was given the opportunity to manage certain projects, the people could not speak, because they have been feeding from the normal bag of rice and a few things that they always bring to give them, especially when they are going back to their villages. So it gave them a lot of hope that these persons will always be there for us. And you know, at one point in time too, the elite had the people, it's like they had tied them on a certain rope, and this cord was tied to a tree. And what was this? You know, whenever you go back to the village or you come back to your local division, this parent will come to your house telling you, my child needs to go to Enam, this one needs to go to this place, and so on. So they saw themselves as demigod. But with the Anglophone crisis coming to the limelight, and the Yaoundé regime was able to see that the elites have not been managing the people quite well, because if the elite were indeed managing the people quite well, we would have seen that the people would have listened to the elite, because we had a certain class of persons that were sent to the northwest and southwest who were exclusively from these regions, but still did not quell the crisis. Let me just borrow into what happened in Fumbot, I think a few days ago, where the governor went to the field, the governor came down, the military was actually taken from Kutaba, and the people of that area still were not afraid until when the Sultan had to come out. Then they listened to the Sultan. Now, that already is a signal that this is somebody who truly represents us, not these people you have sent to come and talk to us. So the elites have not, first of all, been able to speak to these people to their hearing. And with a lot of lies they have told Yaoundé, they got this crisis to the worst state ever. We saw the case of the Minister of Territorial Administration, who came out openly and said there was no such problem. We equally had other situations where the people who come down to the field and the report they are giving is not actually what reflects the ground. Now, because of this wrong data that they have collected and piled in Yaoundé, this is the setback of this data, because they never collected the people's mind. They collected their own mind for their own gain, so they cannot even redeem themselves. Yeah, yes.
Okay, just to cue you, when you say the information that they fed Yaoundé with was not appropriate, is it to say that those in Yaoundé are not aware of what is happening in the divisions, in the subdivisions, in the regions, when we know that we have
representatives,
we have divisional officers, we have all the regional and divisional and subdivisional delegates. Are they not taking this information of them? We know that there is the secret police. What information is not sent?
All of these people are on the ground. But we have noticed that, now take for example, when we see the elites, they'll gather a few people and tell them that they are sending motions of support to the president. Now, what is this for? This is to tell the president that the people of this area, they are so much in support of you and they are behind you. But with all of these services you enlisted, the police, the divisional officers and the rest, we have seen that most of these elites have succeeded to bring them under their feet, because corruption, which is first of all on its peak right now in Cameroon, is able to make most of these people not to give the report. Now, the Yaoundé regime does not depend on these people exclusively on reports that comes from the ground. the elites are kept. They believe that these are the people that will cause these people on the ground to elect them. Don't forget, the purpose of the elite is to see that whenever the government wants vote, whenever the government has an agenda to carry out, this person should act as intermediaries to these people. Now, the elites are first of all benefited from so much. Economically, they have been benefiting. Now, intellectually, they have been benefiting. But if you go back to look at most of these areas, you may want to feel that, well, it's like the elites were kind of jumping into their homes. Let us take the case of Bangem. Let me just go into Kubema Ningoba. We have seen how there are no roads in Bangem, which is the capital. During the last election, we saw people were climbing on sticks, falling sticks, to go and tell people to vote for them.
Okay, I don't know whether you understand what we are really on. They are talking about the elites of the Southwest and Northwest region. Do you think they have proven their worth? Have they been exposed by what is happening in the Southwest and Northwest region?
En fait, je voudrais dire qu'il ne s'agit pas seulement des élites de ces deux régions. Il s'agit des élites de toutes les régions du Cameroun.
Okay.
L'élite a échoué au Cameroun. C'est ce qu'il faut dire dans tout le jeu. L'élite a échoué au Cameroun. Charles Tebey a écrit un livre, Les paradoxes du pays organisateur.
Oui.
Élite prédatrice ou alors il vous demande que le Sud est la région qui est la plus enclavée du Cameroun. Allez-y voir. Quand vous parlez du Sud, c'est vraiment vous parlez de l'Est alors, qui est la région la plus riche du Cameroun, mais la plus enclavée du Cameroun. C'est pour comprendre effectivement que les élites ont échoué. Maintenant, pour revenir spécifiquement aux deux régions que vous avez citées, les régions du Nord-Ouest et du Sud-Ouest, non. La crise anglophone a comme deuxième conséquence l'échec de l'élite. Effectivement, c'est une élite essentiellement oligarque. C'est-à-dire, cette élite s'est positionnée dans son oligarchie, n'a pas partagé, effectivement. Qu'est-ce que les populations réclament? Les populations réclament une certaine autonomie de gestion. Et on voit l'élite qui est là, et compartiment, et défile à Yaoundé, qui ne donne qu'à sa famille, qui ne donne qu'à son petit entourage, mais qui refuse effectivement de faire le travail pour lequel ils ont été certainement promus, soutenus là. Et l'autre conséquence, c'est qu'on voit l'élite est en train de promouvoir leurs enfants. C'est-à-dire les enfants des enfants. Allez voir les enfants de Tangandji, ils sont où? Allez voir les enfants de jeunes, ils sont où? Ainsi de suite. Qu'est-ce qu'ils font des autres, des enfants des autres? En réalité, n'attendez rien ou n'attendons plus rien de ces élites. Il en est du nord-ouest, du sud-ouest, comme il en est du littoral. Le littoral est à côté du sud-ouest seulement. Qu'est-ce que l'élite a fait pour le littoral? On parle du cas du Cam. Prenez le Cam par exemple, le département du Cam, qui a le plus d'élites après le Djelo pour la région du président de la République dans le gouvernement. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Il n'y a pas de route, il n'y a rien, il n'y a aucun. Je dis bien, il n'y a même pas une maison à 2 étages, une maison à étage à Yabassi. À part un hôtel, marché, rien, je vous assure. Le seul monument qui est à Yabassi, c'est l'école agricole. Le lycée agricole que les Chinois ont conçu dernièrement. C'est dommage. C'est pour donc vous dire effectivement que ces élites ne pensent qu'à leur vente. Ces élites ne pensent pas aux autres. Ça dit c'est de l'individualisme. Ils sont méchants. C'est ça le thème. Ils ne veulent pas que les autres puissent évoluer. Donc, et la preuve, vous avez même vu que c'est cette élite qui a contribué à exaspérer la crise anglophone. Prenez le cas du professeur de Rotinjema à l'université. Prenez le cas de Nalova Yonga à Boya, à l'université de Boya. Prenez le cas de Tangandji. Pas Njema, il veut dire Nalova Yonga là-bas. Prenez le cas de Tangandji. Prenez le cas des autres. Qu'est-ce qu'ils font? Quel est leur comportement? Effectivement, cette élite ne pense pas pour les autres, ne pense pas pour la communauté, ne pense pas pour la collectivité. C'est-à-dire il faut changer cette élite, il faut les balayer.
Njock writing from Kongsamba says some Anglophone elites are self-centered and not good. All those who call themselves elites have been vomited by the population and will never redeem themselves, even after the crisis. Nebaji is writing from Bomenda. Do you share this opinion? But they have been vomited.
Mr. Liu, I look at it differently.
Okay.
In the point that you see the elites have a whole different role with the administrators. And one of the things that the Cameroonians have been deceived and have been brainwashed is this Western system of governance, whereby it's almost like washing away the people's cultures, the people's values, the people's identity. You know, in a society where we have always grown up, elites are supposed to be held of high esteem than government administrators. That's why when he cited the case of the Sultan, the people could listen to him because that was a man who has kept his integrity. He was a man who did not merge himself into politics.
No, he's a senator, eh?
Yes, I know. To a certain extent, you need to be able to reflect your people, whereby the people understand that you maintain one spirit with them. But by the time you abandon what has been entrusted in your hands, that becomes a challenge. The people start seeing you as an enemy. And that's why you realize that the elites became a major target, because they turned their back away from the very people that held them high esteem and, became, how will I put it, instruments in the hands of a system which they felt that they got a problem with. So the way I look at it, it will be very, very, very difficult, because we have absolutely allowed politics to, how will I put it, to engulf every sector where we really do not need politics. We need the dignity, we need integrity, we need honor, and we need respect. But we have merged politics, and the interest of the people is not again at heart in the hands of these elites, because when this crisis began, a lot of the people in those two regions really looked up to those that they were really depending on, and they didn't get the kind of support which they were expecting from them. Because you see, one of the things that Cameroonians, they have to understand is that this country is extremely rich beyond the imagination of any Cameroonian. And the position of the government has capacity to buy the consciences of 85% of Cameroonians. That's why you see, you have people who can oppose the government, and in less than no time they become quiet. The government can give everybody 3 million in terms of election, and everybody sits quiet. There are people, if they see 1 million francs, which they have never even seen 100,000 in their life, you tell me that they will not take it. They will take it happily and give you whatever you want, because you have kept the people for a very long period under a particular condition. And this is done intentionally, like I keep repeating. So that is why I was saying that this system, Mr. Leo, we are talking here today, is a system that has absolutely, we are seeing before our eyes, Cameroonians are losing their values, their cultures, their tradition. Their beliefs, because of this Western system which is entering. And until we begin to understand the intentions of these Western nations that is bringing all of this into Africa, and having our leaders having to work in support of their agendas in Africa, when that should not be at the expense of the population. Because at the end of the day, it's the common people that are paying. It's the common people that are paying. We talk here of the elites who are probably maybe depending on to resolve the problem. Rather, the problem are only increasing. The starvation, the difficulties, the IDP, the internally displaced person, as I'll put, and the poverty rate is only increasing with all the actors, organizations put in place to curb down and to mitigate the situation. The question here is, what really is the problem? The problem here is not all these institutions, it's not all these actors. The problem is simple. Have a good political will for your people, point blank. The quarrel and the plight of the people of those two regions is very simple. Give them their basic rights so that they can find their future in their own country. But people are living in their own countries like foreigners. People don't see themselves in their own country. They don't have hope in their own country, whereby you have administrators that are mismanaging the resources of the nation and keeping the mass population. That is why I have always said this. As long as Africans or Cameroonians do not understand that leadership should be able to build legacy that outlives our president in such a way that it can guarantee a future for the coming generations in their nation. Okay. And this is what our leadership has not been able to create. Our own leadership, Mr. Leo, depends on one man. How do we live in a country of 26 million persons and one man controls the destiny of these 26 million people?
Is the president?
It's unheard.
Is the president?
That is what I'm saying, that we should grow past this level. We should be able to create systems, Mr. Leo, that can guarantee Cameroonians a future in their own country. Okay. This is very important.
You are talking about strong institutions and not strong persons. Paddy Asang, You are not in the country, but you follow very closely almost everything that is happening out here. Do you think that in the next, in the coming years, we are going to witness the emergence of a new class of elites in these two regions?
Leo, I'm very sorry that I'm going to disappoint all of you who are sitting in that panel, because I don't believe in what you people call elites.
Okay.
And to talk about elites, you have to put in context and define what you mean by elites. In Cameroon, we have intellectuals who terrorize the way of thinking of our people because they want to be appointed and be called elites. And then we have leaders. And I believe in leadership. I don't believe in elites. What you people call elites, they are fabricated individuals who come and sing songs that they were told to sing, like parrots. Oh, sur haute instruction, the chef d'État is Atanganji is an elite. What is the meaning of an elite, and how has he impacted the life of a person as an elite? It's Musonge who told you that Northwesterners are Kam No Go and elite. It's Obed Ashu, the creator of Kam No Go in the Southwest region, and elite. I believe in leadership. I don't believe in elite. This problem of elitism, it is a stratified society created by the Jacobin system, and they inherited it from France. You have the first class, the second class, the middle class, then you have the feudals who are there to do the dirty job. That's what you people call elites. So they are there to deceive the people and then go and sit in the upper class and decide on your future. What do you mean by elites, Mr. Leo? Please answer me that question before I continue.
Paddy Asang, I am the moderator here, please.
You say you are the moderator.
Yes.
Let me make it clear.
Yes, just make a point.
That the concept of elitism is an adopted concept from Jacobinism, from the French monarchical system that we are still having in Cameroon. That's why you still hear people agitate.
What are you? Paddy
become Mr. Bias because he has that blood of an elite.
Paddy Asang, are you saying that the concept of elite should be removed from our Cameroonian community? It doesn't squarely fix in our context?
Tell me what you mean by elite. That is pure stratifying the society and neglecting competence. It is an advocacy for mediocrity. When you sit and whine and dine with Mr. Bia, you become an elite. You go back and say, I spoke with the president. The president told me to come and tell you that. What is all that? Are we in a monarchy? No, let's
Paddy Asang, we are all learned, please. We are all learned. I'm sure the word elite exists in every dictionary. We all can look it up, please. You may not be satisfied with what is being done or the way and manner of becoming an elite in Cameroon. You cannot say that they don't exist. You may want to say that those who are called elites in Cameroon do not actually meet the criteria for an elite.
Leo, in the word elite, there is the word light. Tell me, how does Atanganji, Ngole Elvis, Musonge, Young Philemon, how have they enlightened the youth?
You are the one.
You are the ones.
Okay, Paddy Asang, you are the one calling those names. We did not call any name here. We just talked about elite. Nobody. We did not say that so and so person is the elite of.
No. Let's be honest. You guys, you are the journalists. You people that are so. If you want to talk about elite, then call the names of those people who you think that elite. Tell me who's an elite, and I'll tell you if it's an elite or not. Let's be honest, please.
Okay, Paddy, I'm coming back to you. Yes, Paddy is raising an issue where many people now question it's difficult to actually ascertain who an elite is from our communities, judging by, I don't know whether it's character or output or how helpful they have been for their respective communities.
It's a sociological, like he said, which I agree with him. It's actually a sociological definition of a class of people with exceptional qualities and ability. Now, it must the deform that we have here is because we are seeing it only from the political prism.
Okay.
We're not seeing it from the economic, because an industrialist, somebody who has been able to create factories to hire people in his community, that's an elite. Somebody has been able to do an exceptional action. Eto is an elite in his community, in a football arena, because people are looking up to him. But I want to say, you see again, when you look at, we take concepts and then we deform it in Cameroon. You know, we used to have what we call Southwest Elite Association. But it was used now for political, more of political grandstanding, that is for political selling, than for internal development. Because again, as an elite, you take from outside and develop from within. But you find a situation whereby the elites, since they were having proximity to political power and the rest, they were rather taken from within and transmitting wrongly to where the source. Because, Leo, one of the things that will make error, and people that don't want to come out clearly, the resources of this country based on our governance system is centralized. And the head of state who is in charge now calls a few groups of people whom the community is like saying that these are our spokesperson. Look at the story that came out when Ashu died. How did he become a prime minister? It was through a recommendation from Fonangwafo. Look at even Musongena we're talking about. Go and find out how he became a prime minister. As a general manager, probably did not know him. It was thanks to a recommendation from the late paramount ruler of Boya. And all that. It means that somebody should be able to, because you asked a question here when the discussion was going on, that how do these people who sell wrong data to the presidency, does the presidency not have representation? That is different. There is political positioning in terms of resource allocation. And those resources can only be allocated based on the needs that somebody is claiming that these are the needs of my people. But now the problem comes now that when you go there now and you are supposed to be talking on behalf of those people, you shy away. It's the same thing when it comes from allocation and appropriation for our budget allocation. When you see those people going to the finance committee, they are negotiating or talking about our budget. That is not the point now that you come and change the budget. You try to change budget allocation from the Ministry of Planning and Regional Development, where the needs of your community is bargained. Yes, those elites are supposed to go down to those ministries now and say these are our basic needs through the representation.
Have to do a lot of lobbying, especially before the planning of.
Of course, before the budget session. Yeah. That's at the level of conception. That's where you allocate and you present the interest of your community based on the needs that they have actually. Because you are you are interfacing, you are intermediating. So, but when you go there now and then you are shy because probably. I sat through a discussion where someone was actually telling me now with the death of some of these elites, I'll call them political elites. They already look about representation now. Among them themselves again, they are not trying to first of all see now whether how they readjust and correct the shortcomings of what actually happened. They are see now who is going to take over from one person that natural phenomenon has taken off from the map.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. I'll begin with the situation of I think how even Njock when it came to be and came how it started for him to become a reporter in the presidency. Now, based on the way he puts the story, it will tell you that somebody was on the ground at the time the president was coming, and he talks about the route that was actually given to Boya. He said the route from my 17, I think the route in Boya, where they had to tar, I think 17 kilometers of road. Boya does not have that number of kilometers, but based on what he said, it was actually done. The president promised that, okay, as he is going, then they are going to tar Buea. That's how Buea got to have these roads we are talking about. Now, this also comes to tell you that the elites, they have a lot to play, as the Yaoundé regime have put it. So if we are not having what the regions are supposed to have, or the divisions are supposed to have, the blame goes back to the elite, because they are not actually performing. But now, according to Paddy Asang, it is a problem to him because the elites are not, we are not supposed to have elite. Every society has its own way which they would love to operate. Even in Germany, we have persons who are elite of certain areas in Germany. Now, if you want to go to even in a monarch, there are certain persons who are considered as elite. Now, like we said, the elite in Cameroon, what is actually killing us in Cameroon is that the political elite determines whatsoever should happen on the ground. Now, if we had people who could come out as elite and advocate on certain things, let me say in the economic sector, they will handle that. But since the policy that would have been made for this economic sector to boom within this area relies so much on what the elite will say, this is where the failure is coming from. Now, these are persons who have, the various communities had believed so much in them in time past. And if they are no more believing in them, it's because it has been proven. We will say it is sadly for us to have this senseless war, but it is equally good because it has come to unveil lots of things which the populists did not even know. Some people had believed. We saw a case in Kumba where some of the elite said the people of Kumba have decided that this is the form of government they will want. But if you went back to do your sampling, you will know that this person did not even go in for that. Where I am living, I go out daily as a civil society organization to speak to the people, to know what their minds are and what they would have loved. But if you listen to what most of these persons, in quote, who are considered local elites, because we have the national elite, we have the local elite, we have people that will give reports to perhaps the party chairman or the party representative within the regions. We have persons that will give reports to the senators or the member of parliament within that particular area. So most of these people, the reports they always give does not reflect what is on the ground. But now, what does Yaoundé need to do in order to have this? This is where we call on the president, we call on the presidency to stop that system where they depend so much on the elite. Now, the populists have come out. This could be an opportunity for the government to take this and work very much on it and understand that if you want to rely on the elite alone, then remember that you are taking your nation into, because where we are today is based on the fact that some people who are considered to be elite of the Anglophones outrightly denied that there is no such problem. And so these people became so angry because even their own, they tend to say to themselves, but we will elect the president, afterward he will appoint you, because those elites indirectly are put in that place by the people through the election they will do from the overall election that will take place. The president and others will come in now to select certain people. So the populist, the common person, truly is the person who decides on who to be their elite.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. True elites should emerge from the masses and as a result of their actions, and so the appointed elites we have now shall never redeem themselves after the crisis. Ban KUNEH is writing from Bamenda. Greetings to all. In the studio, Anglophone elites cannot redeem themselves from fallen glory because the leaders themselves need to redeem their own fallen glory because they are not united and they cannot redeem us. Why they are not together? Prophet Gifts writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Prophet Gift. Good evening, Mr. Kum and panelists. I agree with Mr. Paddy Asang. In the United States, I have scarcely heard the term elite. Let someone tell some of us the definition of an elite. Does it mean someone working for government, most likely in Yaoundé? Thanks. Papita is writing from Limbe. Good evening to you. Stephen Mwambo says, before the Anglophone crisis, the people of Manu, Meme, and Tiko subdivision had more SCNC activists. We all know that the present war started in Manu. I think in Badi and Kembong. When Agbotabi was alive, it is often alleged he always sensed rebellion in Manu and will nip it in the bud. If he was alive, he may have arrested this problem before it escalated. What I'm saying is that the political elites are almost all parasites sucking people dry. They don't represent us. They can tear us and themselves up for financial and political gains. Okay, Stephen Mwambu is writing from Boya there. Good evening to you. This funny politics of rekindling old men in the name of elite is what has helped to set confusion in the northwest and southwest regions. Grey hair was a symbol of wisdom in the days of old, but unfortunately today, grey hair is a symbol of slavery. Derek Owala writing there. Someone is saying here that real elites should emerge from the masses. That is, the population is supposed to decide, or people through their actions distinguish themselves. That is what an elite is. It's a problem not because elites are made from Yaoundé. That is, for you to be considered an elite, you need to be appointed, and then from nowhere you're an elite.
Non, effectivement, Léo, il faut noter qu'il y a plusieurs types d'élites.
Oui, mais le contexte camerounais, quand on parle d'élite, c'est l'élite.
Effectivement, non, partout ailleurs, je voulais rassurer Paddy, pour lui dire que c'est une définition en sciences politiques, et notamment sur des organisations, il y a ce qu'on appelle la sociologie des élites. C'est toute une discipline. Voilà, et maintenant, ceux qui ont défini la notion d'élite, c'est Gaetano Mosca et Wilfried Pareto, qui ne sont pas des Français vraiment, qui sont sud-américains. Italiens et sud-américains. Donc vraiment, il faut dépasser un peu cette conception. Et l'élite politique détermine toujours le cadrage de l'exercice des autres élites. Voyez-vous, parce que c'est eux qui sont aux commandes. C'est à partir d'eux qu'on attend effectivement qu'il y ait une certaine implémentation. Le problème qui se pose, c'est la coupure qui existe entre l'élite et la base. D'où certaines populations ne se reconnaissent pas en l'élite actuelle. C'est ça le problème. Parce qu'on a comme l'impression, pas comme l'impression, l'élite actuelle est essentiellement prédatrice. L'élite actuelle mange, l'élite actuelle bloque tout. D'où donc la nécessité de la décentralisation vers les populations. C'est ce qu'on a appelé le fédéralisme pour assurer Paddy. Quand on parle du fédéralisme communautaire, c'est un fédéralisme culturel, effectivement. C'est un fédéralisme qui repose sur quoi? Qui repose sur ramener les populations, le pouvoir aux populations locales, mais un pouvoir qui les ressemble, un pouvoir qui tient lieu des réalités locales, qui a fabriqué donc des élites, des personnes, des représentants à partir desquels on se reconnaîtrait justement au travers des actes que ceci pose. Parce que le problème n'est pas celui du décret qu'on nomme l'élite, ça existe partout. Le problème c'est qu'est-ce que l'élite en fait de ces décrets dont on a effectivement nommé, parce que c'est l'impact de ces décrets qu'on attend. C'est-à-dire, une fois que vous êtes donc élite politique, élite par décret, qu'est-ce que vous en faites? C'est la problématique fondamentale. Que cela comprenne aussi que il s'agit du bien public. Il s'agit ici de l'intérêt public et non de l'intérêt individuel. Parce que l'autre chose qu'on constate, c'est que cette élite, elle est plus intéressée à perpétuer le régime en faisant quoi? Non pas en faisant circuler la circulation de l'élite totale comme ça doit être fait, mais en faisant reproduire leurs enfants. C'est une bagarre vers laquelle on va arriver. Allez-y dans tous les ministères, tous les directeurs bien des sociétés, vous allez voir les enfants qu'on a renommés partout. Vous allez voir. Et ça fait peur. Et ça, c'est quoi? C'est la conséquence, n'est-ce pas, de la mauvaise gouvernance, de la malgestion de ce régime de M. Biya qu'il faut changer totalement. C'est un régime qu'il ne faut même pas accorder une prochaine faveur. Il faut en arrêter. Et comprendre que c'est ça qui est la cause de l'échec de l'élite. Good evening,
Mr. Liu. There is no need for opposition in Cameroon since they cannot coalesce to oust the ruling party. My sincere greetings to Ebako. Charles is writing from Yaoundé. This one says the problem is strong people and very weak institutions without no independent control. The solution is for young people to build a strong economic bloc who will have the power to influence policy. It's however pathetic that the young people are moving in the same direction as their fathers. Let's look at our public administration. It's nothing to write home about. J.N. Agbo writing there. This one reads, Mr. Liu, good evening to you all in the studio. We cannot hide Anglophone elites are doing nothing to remedy this situation. We expect them to find solutions peacefully to help us overcome these challenges. Yes, they stay quiet and even if they want to say something, it doesn't gear up to anything. These elites have not for once thought about their people in the bushes. Amabo Fred writing from Boya. Good evening to Mr. Liu. The Anglophone elites are the greatest problem in the Anglophone society. A bunch of liars. Okay. Angola Hene is writing from Limbe. Daisy writing from Kumba says, good evening, Mr. Liu and all the panelists. The Anglophone elites are out for their stomachs, so people no longer care whether they exist or not. Daisy, good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Jasper from Kumba. All the elites are political parasites. Quote me anywhere. Good evening. Good evening. What I cannot understand is when pastors are also looking but for someone who has money and is not a born again, but I welcome and the guy who does not really have money but fear God comes seeking for the child. Good evening. All Anglophone elites are hand clappers in Yaoundé. Good evening. Good program. Jevin writing there. Good evening to you people in the studio. We don't have real elites. We have slaves. Okay. Now, Andrin Atem E Ako, what do we expect to see? How do we turn things around so that we have elites that the population can say we are glad in them?
Mr. Liu, I would want to say something in reference to your answer concerning Paddy Asang.
Okay.
You see, I understand his point of view and I understand where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
You see, they are those one of the Cameroonians who still hold the ideology that the federation should have been the solution to the problem of this nation. I think that he has not really been properly schooled in that philosophy, thinking that the federation is going to resolve the problems we're having, whether in the two regions or in Cameroon. And then secondly, we have to understand that politics must not be discussed under political parties. Thirdly, Cameroonians must understand that a president must not only come from another political party. When we continue to follow all the democratic methods, they don't work. If we don't get to that place where we get past that I don't know how I can put it, that brainwash where we feel that it is only behind a political party we can have hope in Cameroon, I think that we have just lost it all, that we can run down this road even for 200 years and will never succeed. Now there's something else I want to also add here, Mr. Liu. When we talk about elites, there are three different contexts in which you can define an elite. One is superior, one has special abilities, and one has qualities. So we need to be able to define which context of elites that we are referring to. Because there are some elites that our analysis may not be very balanced, and I think that it can be an abuse to them. Because it's how a society decides to choose the kind of people that, how will I put it, that reflects the, how will I put it, the people as elites in those regions. People like Atanganji, you cannot say they are elites of the Southwest. They are elites of the government, not elites of the Southwest, because the people of Southwest themselves, have not endorsed, power or kind of special responsibility on Atanganji. It was a government appointment that has Atanganji where he is. So it's not an elite of the people of the Southwest. So when Paddy Asang wants to call those actors in the political realm as elites, these are not the elites we are referring to. We are talking of the elites of those two regions whereby the people themselves hold high esteem. How many people in Northwest and Southwest have esteem of Atanganji? It's the government. So these are not the kind of elites that we are talking about. So I want Paddy Asang to be able to be balanced when he's making analysis. So, Mr. Leo, what I would say here is that the only way for these elites, that the people of those two regions, from all the divisions, the tribes, the different backgrounds and cultures of the people, the only way they can regain their dignity and their honor is for them to stand with their people. That simply means be able to tell the government what really is the plight of the people, and they stand with their people. It doesn't take what is going to happen to them, but they must be able to stand and speak the truth. Because when their consciences and their minds have been compromised, that is when the society rejects them. And do not forget that we have elites also in those two regions whereby these are custodians of the people's identity and culture and tradition, which is very important. This is a whole betrayal to a people's a culture that has been kept for so many years, that have been entrusted in the hands of one man, and then he just dumps it all away, gets into another system and begins to disfavor his own people. So these are the elites that I felt that we were talking about, and these were the elites that the people of those two regions were so much looking up to. We saw from V. Mukede, those are elites. Those are people that a clan, a whole group of people of different villages were looking up to. So we need elites like we saw here with this senator on that was the last program we had here last time. Bela Moki, those are elites. You saw them speaking out the minds of the people. So we cannot just classify them when we have three definitions in which we can define who an elite is. So these are the people that we can say that the people of Fako are looking up to, and they are speaking the minds of the people from those regions. So let all be balanced, because people like Paddy Asang, they feel that federation should have been a solution in Cameroon. Look at Nigeria. Nigeria has federation, but there's still crisis there, so it doesn't matter what you have. It's who is your boss.
They see the threat of secession in Nigeria, and there is Boko Haram not even in the federation. Let us take this last reaction from Mr. Sama Abang Mungwa.
Welcome back, Leo, and thank you for having me on this second topic, which is a very sensitive one, and given the role that those that we commonly call elites have played either in the development or the destruction of their communities. Fundamentally, the most basic problem with this issue is we have to first of all look at who is an elite, who qualifies to fall in that elite category, what does it take to be qualified as an elite, how do we become members of an elite, who defines an elite, how they are selected and how they are created. And that is where we have an issue. So that before we even talk of their role and whether it is possible for them to regain their lost glory, we need to first of all examine the aspect of elite legitimacy. Elite legitimacy. Do those that we call elites, do they have legitimacy? And that goes back to their selection and their inclusion into the class called elites. How are most of them selected? How do they grow, or how do they attain promotion to that class? That a community would identify them as members of, as their representative members and those behind whom they can rally. One thing you should bear with me is that a large proportion of those that we call community elites are simply creations of the system or fabrications of the system. Should I say caricatures of the system, who more or less, a majority of whom do not enjoy any iota of legitimacy because of the mode of their selection and their inclusion into that class. Look back into our communities. You would find just a few who have excelled and have gained accession into that class through hard work. Look at their parcours, as they would say. Look at their trajectory, where they have come from, what they have done, their impactfulness on their communities. Take the singular case of this young, dynamic member of parliament from Nkambe, Honorable Ngala, for example. Permit me use him as an example. It would take an odorous tax for any other politician to beat the records of that gentleman in his constituency, because he became an elite through hard work, through contributions towards the development of his community. But you find a good number who are those that I call caricatures of the system, because the system automatically made them elites either through an appointment or some promotion by godfathers within the system. Those are those who enjoy the title of elite but do not enjoy the legitimacy that goes with it. And that is why I think that the question you asked, if elites of the Northwest and the Southwest will be able to regain lost glory, did they enjoy the glories before? A man who never had legitimacy of his people was simply living a false life and was never an elite representing that community. And so it becomes difficult for him to go back to regain what he did not have.
Okay, that was Sama Abamugwa coming in there from Boya. We unfortunately will have to end at this level. Paddy Asang, we want to say we are grateful you took part in today's edition of the program.
Yes, Leo, I am very, very grateful. I thought you had forgotten me, but I know that my major prime is the Anglophone voice, and I have the basket mouth, and this is the only place that I can come and run my basket mouth. And to conclude, Mr. Leo, we should not forget that the Anglophone problem was exacerbated by people whom we saw as elites. And this concept of elite by appointment, elite by induction, elite by decree doesn't work. I don't agree. I don't agree with everybody who sits on the panel, but your last panelist was very, very pertinent. The man from Boya, I forget his name.
Mr.
I
Sama?
want to congratulate him for his pertinent, yes, for his pertinent argument. And he made it very clear that you are an elite by virtue of the way you impact your community. And by induction, you become a leader. I don't believe in elitism. Elitism is a concept that was brought into our community, and when you went into the court of the king, you became and you sat and ate with the king. The king told you, take my letter and go and give to this person, and then you become an elite. That's how all of these people who are appointed are.
Okay,
and they come and
Paddy.
It's Sean the chef d'etat. Comme le chef de l'etat a dit. It doesn't work like that. Leo, please.
Paddy, we are out of time.
Please,
we are 15 minutes out of. Please, we have to end here. Sorry, I was just saying thank you for participating.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to congratulate you. Give the Anglophone the voices and empower the youth, empower the new generation. Forget about these old people. Forget about this appointed elite. And you people on the ground should take the mantle and let us follow you, not us giving you injunctions. Okay. Thank you, and thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paddy Asang. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Liu. It's a wonderful moment I've had here so far. I just want to end by saying that we have it as a duty to educate the people, understand exactly what is needed of them to build Cameroon. Let me just share this, please, for a few seconds.
Please,
yes, just for a few seconds. I remember that in 2014, thanks to what we did in my 16, the young people came and said, because prior to the anniversary, the 50th anniversary, some companies were charged with tarring the roads in Boya. And some of us, the young ones, we came out and said, this is what you have to do. And before I knew it, I went out for work. Before I could even return, I found some youth in front of my door saying that you could represent we when that company, they come from Mo, talk how they get for manage the Wakwata.
Okay.
Yes, so we should just continue with such mind. But I want to believe that the elites have lost their glory, but it will be difficult for them to redeem it.
Thank you, Mr. George. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Leo. I think the end point I want to propose now is that, especially those of the Anglophones who are economically endowed, let other Anglophones patronize their businesses so that they can have many other millionaires. That poverty will be not a reason for people to take arms.
They should patronize my media prime. Support us. We need support, please. So you support us. Thank you for coming.
Nous sommes très heureux d'être toujours là et nous serons là chaque fois que nous allons nous inviter.
Okay, and to you, Andrin Atem E Ako, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. I don't think that we should put our blames now on the chief, or rather the elites we know where our problem is. Let us not carry our problem and put where the problem is not. Thank you very much.
They accepted the appointment. They should also bear. It's not only.
They will not bear all the responsibility or all the.
Okay, we want to say thank you to you all who took time off to watch the program. Thank you to you, Desmond and Eli and Bertrand Noel. We equally say thank you to you, Tabby Tambe Bryant, who is supervising the work we do out here. Stay blessed. Bye bye.